We've reached the science portion of our class. We've done ideas. We've done significant historical events. We've done artistic reactions or artistic reactions to ideas and historical events through music, art, and literature. So what we have left to cover is science. So we're going to be looking at the scientific revolution, or as I say, possibly the scientific evolution. Because what we're going to argue is that calling this period of time, our period of time, when science takes off, calling that a revolution suggests something about what was going on before then and what happened afterwards that does not put Christianity in the best light. So we're going to look at the standard story that people tell, historians tell, that lead them to dub our time period the time period of the scientific revolution, and why that may not be the best way of describing the incredible advances in science that occurred during this time. So to approach this issue, we kind of have to rethink the way we think about history and the history of science, because what the book argues, and what we're going to try to argue, is that the standard presentation of this relationship between Christianity and science is grossly mistaken. Grossly mistaken even up till the present day. And a lot of errors have been perpetuated about the relationship between Christianity and science, and that's an important issue because science isn't going away. Who would want it to? But if people are right, and Christianity and science have no business being together, if they have no business existing together, what's going to lose out? Most likely Christianity. So we're going to talk briefly about how to think about the past, and with regard to what we're told by historians about the past. So see if what I'm about to tell you resonates with your education. Maybe the education system has changed radically and I'm barking up the wrong tree. But this is what I was taught. Before Columbus sailed, the people at that time believed the earth was flat. And they worried that if you sailed too far out into the ocean, you would fall off the edge of the earth. And Columbus, he wanted to find a new trade route to the Indies, but also prove everyone wrong, that the earth was not flat, but the world was round. And it turns out that this whole story is false. In the history books, Columbus is depicted as this bold, exuberant rationalist who wants to discover and learn truths. And he's going up against a narrow-minded church who believes the world is flat. And he's got to fight against all these forces to prove to them that the world is round. And this fits a general narrative about the relationship between Christianity and science that extends all the way back to the Middle Ages, that says in the Middle Ages we were plummeted into the Dark Ages because Christianity took the helm. And up until the time of Columbus, we even still thought the world was flat. And not until the scientific revolution, when a few bold souls had enough courage to extricate themselves from the tentacles of the church, did we start to make progress in science. So this Columbus story is part of that overall narrative that turns out to be false. Who knew that the world was round? The early Greeks did, except for Democritus. He was a holdout. Aristotle knew the world was round. Aristotle noticed that as he viewed ships going off in the distance, the bottom parts would disappear, and all he would see at the end was the mast, and then it would disappear, suggesting it was going over something rounded. For what else would explain the fact that the bottom part would disappear and gradually he wouldn't be able to see the top anymore? So Aristotle thought the world was round. Most of the early church fathers, Augustine, thought the world was round. In fact, you can see them saying to others in the church, be careful how you interpret the Bible. Don't take all these texts too literally, because if you do, and we discover through science that the world is different than we thought, you're really digging yourself into a hole. So they had texts like this: bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed with splendor and majesty, covering yourself with light as with a garment, stretching out the heavens like a tent, which seems to suggest that the world is flat. And some of the early church fathers said, look, if you're going to go that route, then let's look at this text. Who has ascended to heaven and come down? Who has gathered the wind in his fist? Who has wrapped up the waters in a garment? The earth is a tent, and God's got all the waters in his garment. And people would say, well, no, that's not literally true. And Augustine and others would say, then why are you trying to derive all these scientific proofs about the world from texts like this? That doesn't mean they didn't think that we could know things about the world, know things scientifically from the Bible, but they would caution people on how they interpreted the Bible. And most of them thought the world was round. Thomas Aquinas, most of the scholastics. There is a thinker during the Middle Ages named Sacrobosco, I think. In 1250, he wrote this: a treatise on the sphere. Columbus's journal mentions nothing about a flat earth, and his son's biography of his father mentions nothing about a flat earth. So how in the world did this get started? I don't mean to suggest that everyone believed the world was round. I'm sure there were some flat earthers around at that time, especially among the uneducated. But you go up to them and say, hey, is the world flat? And they look around and say, it looks like it to me. How am I going to eat tomorrow? That's what they were worried about. How am I going to get food? They're not interested in those heady matters. They were interested in the practical matters. But among the educated, they thought for the most part that the world is round. So how is it that Columbus is said to have proven the world is round? It's a long story as to how that got pushed, especially in the late 1800s and early 1900s. A story that got picked up by some historians and got retold until it just became a part of the way we thought of Columbus. And the reason this is important is it because the Columbus story is wrong, and the Columbus story is wrong in part because people have a problem with the influence of Christianity on society, and on society at that time. What else have we got wrong that involves Christianity and science?